promptly. There's still some members missing that I don't think we've had apologies for, but we better start the meeting. So welcome everybody to March's Planning Committee. Before we go down the agenda, I think we'll introduce ourselves as we normally do. Just for members in the gallery, we've got an unusual item 5 because it's a consultation response, which we don't see very often. But when we get to the actual regular items, what will happen is the officer will present a report. If I've got some speakers against and then for, we will call them forwards. Each speaker has up to 5 minutes and I will time them. And then we will move on to members can ask questions of the officers and then debate and hopefully determine the application. My intention today is run down the agenda in order as we have speakers for everything. So I'm the chair and my name is Gordon Taylor. Go round.
Oliver Brown, Democratic and Electoral Services Officer.
I'm Steve Morgan. I'm the councillor for Grange Ward and Vice Chair of this committee.
David Brown, councillor for Hucklecote.
Joanne Brown, councillor for Barnwood.
Lorraine Campbell, ward councillor for Tuffley.
Angela Conda, councillor for Kingsholm and Wootton.
Sarah Sawyer, councillor for Long Levens.
I'm Andrew Garrels. I'm a councillor for Abbeydale.
Paula D, councillor for Tuffley.
Mark Sweet, Gloucester County Council Highways Officer.
Yep, Ian Hunt, Gloucestershire County Council Highways Development Management.
Adam Gooch, Planning Policy Manager.
I'm Sean Herbert. I'm the new Planning Manager, Development Management.
Okay, before we run down the agenda, I'd just like to say this meeting is being live streamed on the council's YouTube channel. The recording of this meeting will remain online for 4 years. If you are present in the chamber, you are consenting to appear in the recording and broadcast, which may also be used for training purposes. So we'll start with apologies, which we do have.
Yeah, so we've had apologies from Councillor Tracy, hence why Councillor Evans is substituting, and I'll follow up about the other members who aren't present.
Tolman.
Yeah.
Declarations of interest. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. I need to declare an interest in agenda item 5, the land at Wadden. For many years, since the idea of the huge development at this location has come forward, I have reflected the views of residents in doubting the wisdom of this development in this location, both verbally and in writing. And without the necessary infrastructure and considerable road traffic mitigation measures. So I think in order not to prejudice the City Council's submission, I will absent myself from this item and sit in the public gallery if that's all right.
Councillor Campbell next, I think you indicated.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, similar to my colleague, Councillor Morgan, my views on Wadden are very open, very public, and have been widely known for many years. So for the same reasons, when after I've had a chance to speak, I will also leave the room for the debate and voting. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor D.
I declare an interest as I have openly opposed this proposed development. Item 5, I beg your pardon, item 5.
So just very quickly, I declare a non-pecuniary interest insofar as that I was a lead member for planning and housing for a short period and discussed the issue several times with people like Adam Gooch. And I think the paragraph in here about the about the impact of traffic and all the rest of it reflect my views, and I have not made any sort of determination on this issue.
Okay, so, yep, have we got another interest?
Yes, for item 5, I will too be retiring from the vote because I voiced my opinions.
Okay, so just before we move off declarations of interest, on item 5, what I think we will do is we'll let the members watch the presentation, and then I've got 2 affected ward members, so Tuffley and Grange, want to address the committee, which we will let them do as ward members would normally do, and then we will ask everybody to leave and just sit outside the chamber. Okay. Minutes.
Thank you. I'd like a correction to my comments, which, as they're recorded, make Councillor Chambers' remarks following seem a non sequitur. I was actually suggesting that the property concerned could be converted into a ground floor apartment and an upper 2-floor maisonette, which would provide 2 family homes. That's not clear from the minutes at the moment.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Condor. When you came over here to discuss that with us, so on page 93, this is for the application 26 Heathrow Road. Under the section members debate, the 3rd paragraph down starts Councillor Condor, and what we're proposing is what you've just said there will come in after the sentence that ends 10 years from such accommodation period, and then what you've said, period, and then the rest of your comments. Okay? For clarity, is everybody okay with that amendment? Yeah. Okay, with that amendment then, are we happy to sign the minutes off as a true record? Okay. We'll do now. Late material. Has everybody read the late material? It didn't take very long today, which is what we like. Okay. So we'll move on to item 5. So we'll let Adam make his presentation, then I'll ask all the members to move to the public gallery. I'll let the ward councillor speak, and then I'll ask the members to leave before we open up the debate.
Okay, thank you very much. So this item relates to a response to a major planning application in Stroud District on land at Whaddon. The application is outlined and includes the following uses: 2,550 new dwellings, a local centre and community core, a 150 space transport modal interchange, primary and secondary school provision, open space, green infrastructure, watercourse enhancement measures to Daniels Brook, drainage infrastructure, parking and utilities. It also includes 3 access points from the A4173 Stroud Road and 1 access point from Nass Lane. All matters are reserved apart from access. The site itself is located to the south of Gloucester City. It abuts the railway line to the west, Stroud Road and the M5 to the east, Nass Lane to the south, and to the north there are open fields and Whaddon Village. This is the illustrative master plan which is associated with the application. It shows, amongst other things, the access points along Stroud Road and Nass Lane, a modal interchange facility to the north, accessed from Stroud Road, the broad location of secondary and primary schools to the south, and green infrastructure, playing fields and open spaces. Land at Whaddon forms part of a wider site that is safeguarded in the emerging Stroud Local Plan Review to meet the unmet needs of Gloucester City, should it be required, and provided it is consistent with the approved strategy of the Gloucester, Cheltenham and Tewkesbury Joint Core Strategy Review, now the Strategic and Local Plan, or SLP. In response to the last formal public consultation into the Stroud Local Plan Review in 2021, the SLP authorities responded in relation to this site. Concern was expressed regarding the potential impact of the scale of development on the immediate and wider highway network to the south of Gloucester, but the principle was supported of safeguarding the site as an opportunity to consider through the SLP should it be possible for the highways issues to be overcome. The Stroud Local Plan Review is currently at public examination. The inspectors have expressed concern themselves about the impact of growth on the highway network around the southern Gloucester fringe and have paused the examination to allow additional evidence to be prepared and consulted on. At this time, the SLP is at a very early stage of preparation, with consultation currently underway, where we're asking a series of questions regarding the principles, opportunities and priorities that the plan could address. This includes the amount of development the SLP should plan for and how it could be delivered in a sustainable way. As part of this process, the councils are also undertaking a call for sites, whereby landowners, developers and the community can submit sites for the councils to assess for their development potential. It's not possible at this stage, therefore, to confirm whether land at Whaddon is required and if it would meet the SLP strategy. In light of this, the draft response at Appendix 3 objects to the planning application on the basis that it is premature and that the relative highways impacts need to be considered in combination with other sites identified around the Gloucester Fringe through the ongoing examination of the Stroud Local Plan Review. Notwithstanding the overriding objection, if Stroud District Council is minded to grant planning permission, the response further sets out that there are some points the council would like to be addressed. These are connectivity with Kingsway to the west, provision of local shops, services and facilities within the development to meet the needs of the new community, and flood risk from Daniels Brook. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask the four members who declared a pecuniary interest to move to the back, and then I will get not pecuniary,
Bias and predetermination.
Bias and predetermination, sorry.
If they could leave the room, please, Chair,
Yeah.
that'd be preferred.
And yes, if you could leave the room, and then I've got Grange and Tuffley ward councillors who want to make representation to the committee. So if Councillor Morgan, maybe you go first if you sit in the public seat, and then Councillor Campbell, if you just sit at the back, and if the other two would leave, that would be better.
The council's constitution enables ward members, even where in this circumstance, to be able to speak and address the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. No, I will be brief because I think the arguments have already been laid out in several ways. I must commend this response. I think it's an excellent response. It's very thorough and certainly covers the areas of concern that people have regarding such a large-scale development at this location. I think it's fair to say that people accept that sometimes large developments can be a sensible way of achieving the necessary housing numbers that we expect Gloucester has. So there's no sort of absolute opposition to what is planned here, other than we would expect, the residents would expect, that all infrastructure matters would be dealt with in every aspect. Now, some have been mentioned, but there are others that I think need to be looked at as well, because if there's going to be further development to the south of Gloucester, which will impact the south of the city, I think we then have to sort of try and put pressure to achieve, for example, doctors' surgeries and dental surgeries. So as well as the education and the green open spaces that we value. There are other areas of infrastructure that are very, very important to people who live to the south of Gloucester, because it's not good at the moment. Clearly, highways impact is the major obvious one that when this issue has been discussed by people comes up immediately. On page 22, there's a paragraph which begins with the main issue, and it refers to St Barnabas roundabout and surrounding highways. I would like to respectfully ask for a minor amendment to that, to add Grange Road after St Barnabas roundabout. So it reads St Barnabas roundabout, Grange Road and surrounding highways. Apart from that, I think the submission is a very well reasoned one, and we must wait now and see how the inspector determines it and the advice that he gives. So thank you, Chair.
If you wouldn't mind leaving the room, and then Councillor Campbell, do you want to come up, and again, you've got up to 5 minutes to make representations for your ward.
Thank you, Chair. So I am speaking both as ward councillor, but also as a resident in Tuffley of 55 years. And I'm totally opposed to this development. And I also speak on behalf of my colleague, Councillor Paula Dee, who has been battling this proposed development since 2009, along with her husband, Councillor Gerald Dee. But most importantly, I'm speaking for every resident I know in Tuffley who dreads and fears this proposal. This is the burning issue that everyone is concerned about, away and above all other issues locally. This is the one that's on everyone's lips, and with very good reason. Obviously, as has been mentioned before by Councillor Morgan, the impact on the infrastructure of Tuffley, the increase in traffic is of major concern. An extra volume of traffic, which would be created on an already congested road system. The other issues include an increased flood risk. The houses along Grange Road and Bybrook Road were very badly flooded in 2007 from water pouring off Wadden Fields. And I think people have those memories of that time, and those concerns live with them, and always the dread that that might happen again. I'd also like to mention the loss of amenity, views and tranquility around our historic churches. And I'd also like to say that absolutely no changes or mitigations to St Barnabas roundabout or the surrounding roads would ever, in my view, make this plan acceptable or viable. It is completely unsound. And I'm glad that the city's response acknowledges all of these issues, the main issues and problems and challenges. And I really hope that this council will continue to object to this plan, just as I hope that Stroud will protect Tuffley by totally rejecting it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so we'll open it up to members for questions, first of all, of the officers. Whilst we do have a highway officer here, he's not the highway officer who knows this in detail, but may be able to answer some higher level questions if you have any. But he's not the case officer for the application on Stroud's behalf. But yeah, if you've got any questions for Adam, then let me know. No? Yeah.
Thank you. I know that there are modifications proposed for St Barnabas roundabout, but this development would very likely have impact on Eastern Avenue and Cole Avenue and the major junctions along those roads. Are there any proposed alterations or improvements to those junctions, please?
Through you, Chair. I think the There is a scheme drawing for the St Barnabas roundabout. It shows it as a signalised junction. But I think at this stage we still need to agree the trip rates and run that through the county model that we have. And that would then indicate the areas of where the traffic congestion is and highlight the areas of mitigation. So if that would throw up an issue there, that would be something that we'd need to look at. But I think we need to do a lot more work on the modelling side to determine the true effects of the development at the moment. I can report back at the next committee if there's any specific drawings that if someone's looked at anything on Eastern Avenue. I know there are other potential developments along there that would change junctions along that route. So, yes, Chair, if that helps.
Thank you. I just had a question for Adam. The Stroud plan is currently under, is currently going through the inspectorate process, but it's been suspended as it not to look specifically at the highways issues around that part of the city with relating to the developments that are in the plan, and that this is really a bit early to come through because really they need to see the outcome of the impact on the highways for that, and then that's the crux of the highways issues with this application as well as other allocations in the Stroud plan.
Yeah, that's right. So the inspectors expressed concern over the impact of growth to the south of Gloucester and other proposed allocations in fairly close proximity, such as Sharpness, with their impact on junctions 12 and 14 of the M5, but also other roads within the wider area as well. So I think a letter was received from the inspectors by Stroud in early February, which confirmed that there would be, I think it was a 7-month pause to allow additional evidence to be prepared, followed by, I think, 3 months of consultation on that new evidence that the council will put forward, followed by the restarting of the examination in public.
Any more questions? I've got something after what Councillor Morgan said. Is wondered if we could add Grange Road into the list where we've got on page 22, sort of second to last paragraph. It says St Barnabas roundabout, comma, and that wider highways network. And I think he was quite keen to have Grange Road explicitly included in there as an area of concern for the traffic. And if committee's happy with that, that would be my only proposed amendment to the submission to Stroud. Yeah. Anybody else want to ask questions or debate? Okay. Overall, I think it's a fair letter, and it puts all of our concerns about the application. So I'm happy to. What do we technically do?
So can we have so, Chair, you've effectively proposed the report subject to that one amendment by reference to Grange Road. Can I have a seconder for that?
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
And then a vote, please, Chair.
Okay, all those in favour of sending off this representation to Stroud? So that's unanimous, thank you very much. Okay, we'll pause for a minute, let anybody who wants to leave, and bring in those that came out. 63 to 69 Northgate Street. Whenever you're ready, Adam. If we just wait for Sarah to come back in, I think.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application for full planning permission for the demolition of the building that most people will know as the former Sainsbury's on Northgate Street, and redevelopment across 3 blocks for 55 flats and commercial space on the Northgate Street frontage proposed for Class E use. I'm sure most members will be familiar with the site, but this is a useful aerial photograph just to see the extent of the building and some of the relationships to its context. This is looking at the Hare Lane frontage principally, and from the other direction looking down on Northgate Street. The Northgate Street frontage currently, and the Hare Lane frontage. So that's stood within Pitt Street, which is referenced several times in the report. This is the existing elevations. The red obviously is the site. So in terms of some of the issues that are raised in the report, you can see that the lower of the 3 visuals there is the view from the Hare Lane car park in terms of the mass of that building. The building in white in the foreground on the right is the listed Raven Centre, which comes up in the report several times. This is the proposed ground floor, and on the right-hand side of the image is the Northgate Street frontage. So the light blue is the extent of the proposed commercial space, the Class E unit. That's about 120 square metres of floor space for that use. The sort of peach-coloured wedge shape just below that, that's the proposed residence entrance foyer where the mural is proposed to be relocated. The 3 blocks in total comprise the 55 flats mentioned. So you'll see on the next few slides, this is flats on the upper floors to varying story heights. At the bottom left of the image is the Hare Lane frontage. That's entirely flatted development. And at the top of the image is the proposed Block A, again, entirely for flats. You can see there's an area of green, a sort of courtyard, if you will, in the centre of the development. And on the left-hand side, that's a collection area for the refuse, and then the 2 disabled bay spaces for parking. So immediately off the left-hand side of the image would be the Hare Lane car park. So another way of orientating yourself may be that the disabled parking is basically in the same position as the Sainsbury's loading bay if you've stood in the car park there. So first floor, and you'll see a lot of similarities as we go up the floors. I have included them all at the moment. So you basically got a series of flats across the 3 blocks. And again, the green and the purple and the blue are just denoting the different size flats. So you can see that the Northgate Street block and the block A are going slightly higher. That green is the roof of the Hare Lane block, which is slightly lower at 3 stories. You can see the 4th floor of block A, which is the higher of the 3. This is the proposed Northgate Street block, so 3 stories sort of at the face of the building, and then the top floor recessed back somewhat across the main front of it, and on the right hand side recessed back further on that very right hand bay. Perhaps just worth pausing on that actually for a moment. So the larger of those openings at ground floor towards the left, that's the entrance foyer to the residential where I mentioned about the mural being relocated. That's the rear of that block. This is block C to Hare Lane. So again, 2 stories, sort of full face of that building. The top floor is set back slightly in the central part, and the 2 end corner parts at that top floor that are shown slightly more faded, they're set back farther from the central section. And the rear of that building, block A, which is the one at the top of the layout that we were looking at over 5 floors, west and the east. So that's towards Worcester Street broadly, and the end elevations of that block. These are images set in the street scene. So obviously that's the Northgate street scene. The red line that you might be able to make out on the image is an outline of the existing building. That's the Northgate Street in terms of just a slightly enhanced focus on some of the detailing used in that facade. And then the equivalent, but for Hare Lane. So again, the red is the outline of the existing building. And the equivalent drawing showing the detailing of that block. Detailing equally of block A. Photos for context of Northgate Street, probably very familiar to most. Context on Hare Lane, so in the top left image, that's the Raven Centre that's mentioned. Obviously in the bottom left, there's a slightly larger photo, which I'll come to in a moment. That's the view that you would see looking towards the site. Block A, the larger of the 3, would appear towards the left-hand side of what you would see as the Sainsbury's store now in terms of the views that I talk about in the report. So here again, looking at the view from the car park towards the site, the Raven Centre with the white gable end that's shown on the right-hand side. And you can just make out. So what you can see in terms of the skyline, so I mentioned this in my report, that's not all the Sainsbury's building. That sort of slightly lighter coloured part is, I think, the top of the Debenhams building. So part of that image in terms of breaking the skyline there is the existing Sainsbury's building, but there are other buildings behind that you can see in the silhouette. That's looking at the existing delivery area, so broadly where the refuse collection would go, and the disabled bay parking. That's the existing mural, which the council's allocated as a non-designated heritage asset. currently on the Hare Lane facade of the building. The next few slides are images where the applicant has provided existing and proposed comparisons. So this in the peach colour, or the pink colour maybe, is the existing, the green is the proposed. And then these are all sort of street scene images or from slightly farther away. So what you'll see is the one on the left in the pink is the existing and the green on the right is the proposed. So that's looking from Northgate Street and from the other direction on Northgate Street coming down from the cross. Looking slightly further away, looking up Northgate Street broadly towards the cross. And then reverse again, probably broadly from the end of St Aldgate Street, I guess that one would be. Looking from towards King's School, the corner with the King's School block on it, looking back towards the site. So that would be the Raven Centre and the white on the left of each image. Looking from the gardens towards the cut-through lane to the cathedral, opposite the Hare Lane block. Farther down Pitt Street, Hare Lane car park. Farther back down Pitt Street, Hare Lane car park on the approach towards the mini roundabout. That's looking from Northgate Street broadly at the corner with Spread Eagle Road, where you've got the new development on the corner there. That one is just worth dwelling on slightly further. What you can't see, because it's fairly small, but if on the right image, if you see the red of the cathedral, you can just see the top of Block A projecting ever so slightly above that corner building. That was one of the images that we asked to be modelled, just to test that image because it's mentioned as a view in the conservation area and mentioned in my report. This is looking slightly closer. Block A has disappeared behind the buildings in the foreground there on the corner of Worcester Street and Northgate Street. This is looking from King's School Field. You can just see the red, the pink of the existing building on the left and the green in a similar position on the right, broadly centrally. That is a view modelled from, it's called Hare Lane North Car Park, but you would be pretty much screened by the railway line, I think, there. So probably it's about a view from the railway line. The Tanners Hall development, I think, it doesn't appear in the model there, but I think would effectively completely screen that view anyway now because it's in the foreground, or would be in the foreground of that view. Again, some massing comparisons from slightly different angles, pink existing and the green proposed. This is some additional views that we asked for to sort of model, in effect, to prove the presence of the Block A building where it was suggested to be screened by those buildings, but that is in effect to show if the foreground buildings weren't there where it would appear, just as a sort of sense check on making sure we've looked at that impact quite carefully. And this was the other image that we asked for in addition, which was looking at a view that isn't protected per se, but we felt was an important one, which is the view coming down the diagonal New Street in the Forum. So as you would come from the railway station across the street and you join the start of that road, there's a view to the cathedral, which you've probably seen is framed by the bridge that's gone in recently. And that is testing what Block A would do, if anything, to that view. And you can see there it appears off to the right-hand side from that view of the cathedral. The recommendation from officers is that the scheme is acceptable on balance and recommended for approval in accordance with the amended recommendation in the late material, subject to the conditions in the officer report as amended in the late material ever so slightly, and the completion of a legal agreement as set out in the original report. Thank you.
Okay, I have some speakers. We got Mr. Lloyd Griffiths. So when you're ready, tap the button. You've got up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. My name is Lloyd Griffiths. I'm the Bursar and Company Secretary of the King's School in Gloucester, and it's on that capacity that I'm speaking. As context, King's School Gloucester is a 3 to 18 day school for boys and girls. The vast majority of our pupils live within Gloucester or the wider county area. It's, as a school and as a business located in the city centre, it's very successful. As of this morning, we have 741 pupils on roll and we have over 200 employees. Now, these figures represent a 40% growth in the past 5 years, and this growth has been largely predicated by the investment the school has made in its facilities. In that period, we've invested over £5 million, and the facilities are not just for the benefit of pupils, but we let them out at charitable rates to local sports clubs, visiting schools, tourist groups and the like. So it brings much needed economic growth day in, day out to the centre of Gloucester. We're pleased that the site is being developed. We were very sad when Sainsbury's closed because, as you can imagine, it was very handy having a Sainsbury's superstore within stone's throw of the school, but we've got used to walking to Tesco's now, and we're pleased that the site is being redeveloped. And we also recognise that it's probably appropriate that it's redeveloped as residential rather than further retail in the majority. Our main concern is related to the increase in traffic that the development will create, both during the construction phase and as an enduring development. The officer's already mentioned Pitt Street many times, and as for those who are not aware, our school, which has been on the site for 483 years, bisects Pitt Street. So we have the children many times a day walking along Pitt Street and crossing Pitt Street, and it is that safety aspect which is the school's main concern. Invariably, at times we have cars driving at speed down Pitt Street, both the right way and the wrong way. It is currently a one-way street, and when they do go down the wrong way or we have reckless driving, we do report it to the police. We've had many near misses over the years, as you can imagine, with parked cars and children walking along very narrow pavement. We have numerous misses where children step off the pavement into traffic, and it is the school's concern that a more serious incident may occur if the situation does not improve. The school has contacted Gloucestershire Highways on this matter and Think Travel. We've spoken to Councillor Pam Tracy, and we've also contacted Richard Graham MP, in particular about trying to do something about pedestrian safety in Pitt Street, and our aspiration is that something like a pedestrian priority street is created or something similar. I would ask that the committee takes this into consideration and something is done about the pedestrian safety in Pitt Street before any further development is approved. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. First, you to sit down. I've got Will Collins. Same again. When you're ready, tap the button and you've got up to 5 minutes.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. I'm here to represent the applicant, Clare House Developments Limited, who are a subsidiary company of Mount Charm Group, a third-generation family-run and owned property company. They have a very significant commercial property portfolio across the country. Mount Charm are a long-term investor that seek to hold, asset manage and improve their property assets. As such, where existing demand for commercial use on site becomes unviable or a building obsolete, they will seek to find alternative uses in order to regenerate and breathe new life and sustainability into a property. This is the case at the former Sainsbury's site at Northgate Street, where once Sainsbury's vacated the premises in 2021, it had not been possible to find a suitable occupier to take the site on in a long-term and viable way. This is a national trend that's been prevalent for many years now, and Mount Charm have recent experience across their portfolio of very similar circumstances. The proposal before you this evening would ensure the retail frontage is retained on Northgate Street and that 55 high-quality apartments are delivered in this city centre location. The applicant has taken time and great care in designing this scheme, with pre-application discussions taking place back in 2021 and feedback received from the council, which was acted upon by the architects and design team. Prior to any design work taking place for this application, HC UK heritage consultants were instructed to review the site from a heritage perspective, given the conservation sensitivity of the site. This input informed the size and scale of the scheme from an early stage to ensure that the significance of the heritage assets would be preserved and enhanced. As a result, the applicant considers a wholly limited and very low level of less than substantial harm has been found to 2 heritage assets. However, this is outweighed by the public heritage benefits of the scheme. These benefits are firstly the removal of the poor quality existing built form on the site, which is identified as being visually intrusive within the conservation area and in need of enhancement, and secondly, architectural enhancements to Hare Lane and Northgate Street. Further, there are numerous other significant public benefits of the scheme, the provision of 55 new homes assisting Gloucester to meet its housing need, and including a full policy compliant provision of 11 affordable homes. These new homes will be located in a highly sustainable city centre location on previously developed land, thus assisting urban regeneration. It's estimated that the development will result in approximately 80 occupants who will all contribute to the local economy and assist in supporting shops, services and facilities locally. The proposal would also result in an underused premises that does not make a positive contribution to the vitality and viability of the city centre at the moment being removed and replaced with a full-length active retail unit on Northgate Street frontage to assist in revitalising the shopping centre. The applicant has enlisted the services of a chartered commercial surveyor since the scheme's inception and as such are very confident that the proposed retail unit will be occupied. The scheme would also result in a reduction in overall footprint of built form on the site. The site is currently 100% brownfield, and the proposal would introduce green, landscaped open space in the heart of the city centre. This will provide occupants of the new homes with communal as well as private amenity space, which is so important for the mental and physical well-being of residents. This new green space will also assist in ensuring that the scheme would lead to 100% net gain in biodiversity units on site, which is well in excess of the minimum policy requirement of 10%. Another environmental benefit of the scheme is the replacement of an inefficient building with up-to-date ones that meet modern building regulation standards. In addition, the energy statement submitted with the application confirms that a minimum of 65% carbon emission reduction will be achieved for the flats and 18% for the retail units, courtesy of PV panels and air source heat pumps, which is significantly in excess of policy requirements. Finally, the proposal would result in a number of significant economic benefits, including a community infrastructure levy payment of approximately £230,000, other financial contributions such as open space, education, libraries and Cotswold Beechwoods, secured by Section 106 agreement totalling over £500,000, plus future council tax payments from residents. There would also be significant job creation during the approximate 30-month construction period, estimated at approximately 60 workers minimum over the duration of the build. In summary, the applicant is pleased to note that the council officers agree that the public benefits of the scheme are significant and outweigh any heritage harm identified. The application represents an opportunity to regenerate a building of little architectural merit that is not currently serving the vitality of the city centre in a positive manner, with a high-quality, sympathetic scheme which respects and enhances the significance of the heritage assets in the vicinity of the site. I hope members can support the applicant's proposals this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, open to members for questions first of all. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. Listening to the speaker from the King's School, you could certainly appreciate any concerns they might have regarding potential increase in traffic. And my concern is actually, well, I'm seeking a reassurance. My question is therefore, during the construction phase, there will be presumably a traffic management plan in place in order to avoid disruption to the surrounding highways area. Is there provision in that for the King's School to be consulted about how this traffic management plan is working, so that they have an opportunity, if they feel that is not working well, from their point of view, that this can be sort of revisited? I hope that's clear. Thank you.
Yes, through you, Chair. There is a condition for a construction management plan. And I don't think it's all the details in the plan, in the report, and necessary. We couldn't add other concerns in there. So when the condition comes to discharge, I will certainly make a point of the issues raised by the school. But there is a note at the bottom of a method to communicating the construction management plan to staff, visitors, neighbouring residents and businesses, and would assume that includes the school. So when it does come through to discharge, I will make a point of liaising with the applicant and the school on that basis, because the last thing we need is large vehicles going up and down Pitch Street and conflicting with the children at school times. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Swear next.
My question is similar. In the paperwork, King's School requested a pedestrian priority street as a condition, and I read through the conditions and it's not there, so I just wondered why it was decided not to include that in the conditions.
So in order to be a valid condition, the requirement, as it would be, has to pass certain tests, so necessity being the obvious one that springs to mind. So if you were preventing a development from happening before something else occurred, it would have to be necessary to make that development acceptable. And given the a range of issues, not least what the extent consent is for, which is a retail unit and its associated vehicle movements and pedestrian movements, compared to the proposal and its vehicle movements and pedestrian generation. Would that be a reasonable change in circumstances to make that requirement necessary in planning terms? And our view is that the change in scenario is not that significant as to merit that condition. It would actually be not the most straightforward thing to just condition, because it's not in the control of the applicant, and it would be measures outside of their control and outside of the site. So probably what one would have to think about doing is maybe considering a Grampian style condition where something has to happen first. And I think the case law is that there has to be a reasonable prospect of that happening before you could in effect prevent a development based on it. So we don't have, in my view, anything strong enough to demonstrate harm that would make it necessary. And if there was, we would need to look at other issues around whether that's likely to happen. So that's the reason why it doesn't appear.
Thanks, Adam. Yes.
The open space contribution of 256,000, is that going to be spent on site, or is it going to be spent off site?
It would highly likely be spent off-site in somewhere that's in public use. Typically, if you had a residential development, you would look at providing sports facilities and play facilities on site. If that was, use the example that was in item 5, perhaps you would be looking clearly at delivering that on site. This site obviously doesn't lend itself for that, so normally that money would be taken and looked at in being invested locally either enhancing or providing new facilities for sport and for play.
Okay, Councillor Gravel's indicated next. Anybody else indicated?
So at the end of paragraph 1.4, the officer's right, the proposal is designed to be a car-free development in the main, although there are 2 parking spaces proposed for disabled users of the Hare Lane car park. I think I understand what that means, but it doesn't mean, does it, that of those 55 units, none of them will have cars? It doesn't mean that. It can't mean that, can it?
No, it can't mean that, no.
So just to follow that up, that makes the points that the bursar was making even more pertinent, and I don't see anything in the report which addresses that.
Through you, Chair. Obviously, it's a very sustainable location. There are no places to actually park a vehicle near the site. There is around the site is constrained for parking. There's waiting prohibitions, loading prohibitions. There are some residence permit bays, but that will be restricted as part of the contribution to remove that. I mean, there is parking available on Hare Lane car park, but you'll be charged quite a lot of money to park there in the day, but you can only park there for 4 hours. It is free in the evening, so practically there is nowhere to put a car. And if you do have a car, people generally like to have it within view because of security issues. So this is a development that if you have a car, it's clearly not suitable for that type of person that wishes to live with a car. So it would be for people who didn't feel the need to have a car, and then they're happy to use the sustainable transport links to travel wherever they need to. I think it's with 350 metres of the bus station, 500 metres of the train station. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. I'll let Adam come in as well, but to put you on the spot, can either of you think of how far the nearest unrestricted parking street is?
That's a very good question. I did look at where some of the permit parking bays are. So I think there's a couple just the other side of the mini roundabout on Northgate Street and Worcester Street. There's also a couple halfway down Worcester Street on the east side, and I think Pitt Street is as well. I wouldn't like to state with any certainty for the committee to rely on where the nearest one is, but the options for parking in broadly the Kingsholm area, that's slightly changed recently, unless I'm mistaken with the parking permit scheme there. So not in the immediate environs would be my suggestion. The other thing I was going to mention was, and this is a typical approach that has been agreed with the Highway Authority in recent years, because of the oversubscription of the permit scheme, the contribution to fund the traffic regulation order to exclude the development from any automatic right to get a permit is secured to, in effect, prevent residents, as the member had rightly said. We can't stop people from owning a car, but the combination of there being no on-site parking combined with being prevented from having a permit and therefore being able to use a permit car parking space in the near vicinity is an extra disincentive to the possibility that, as was fairly raised, someone might still own a car.
Okay, thanks, Adam. So just to be clear, this development, that they won't be able to apply for the street parking permits. So just want to make that clear. I've got Councillor Brown wanting to come in, but I'll let Councillor Gravel back in with another question.
You prefaced your question by saying, Chair, it was an unfair question, and maybe this is an unfair question too. But I just wondered if anybody on the top table knows the percentage of car ownership amongst average households in Gloucester.
Regards to car ownership levels, there's the census data that is available, and car ownership levels generally go in line with the number of habitable rooms, and also the ability to park within the vicinity of the dwelling. So average car ownership for smaller dwellings is in the region of 0.3 to 0.4 per dwelling. So it's a very low car ownership anyway, even if there was parking available, but as it's constrained for parking. And I reiterate the point that people, because of security concerns, like to park a car within view of their window. And this is a problem that we get a lot on residential estates where they have a car even 20 or 30 metres from their front door. They have a parking space, but they don't use it because they're concerned about the convenience and security. So if you're not able to park your car within view and there is nowhere within this site in view, it's not attractive for a person with a car. So thanks, Chair.
Okay. Councillor David Brown.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question's about the murals. Whenever I'm in Gloucester as a pedestrian, I take a detour to go and look at them because we don't have a lot of street art. And I'm just pleased that their allowance has been, they're taken into account in the report. But I'm keen to know how they're going to be stored and looked after and returned in good condition.
So we don't have specific details of the storage arrangements at the present time. I have drafted conditions 16 and 17 to seek those details for approval. So initially a method statement for their removal and storage, and then subsequently in condition 17 a method statement for the installation. To try and ensure that they are done in a sensitive manner.
Councillor Chambers. Questions?
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the Raven Centre, would you better pull the map up and just explain, sorry, where again that is again?
So not on the map, but it's up already taken.
Yeah.
So just on the left is the timber frame, and the right building on the left, that dimension.
Yeah, can you put it on plan view, if that's okay? So where's that in relation to plan view?
That is the left-hand side.
You can't move the mouse on it so I can see, is that right or no? Sorry, just want to just be certain. No problem. Thank you. Is there any way of zooming in on the outline planning drawing, just to see if the walls abut each other? So looking at that, it would show that the party walls are joining. Is that correct?
The applicant has suggested that that won't be the case, so they've said that the walls aren't tying in to that building at the present time.
Should that not show, therefore, then on the outline planning that there is a definite visible gap? Because my concerns are if these drawings get signed off as they are, that shows that there is no visible gap. And obviously it's a 14th century building, timber framed Tudor. It's under the protective building scheme. And the outline planning does not show any gap whatsoever between the new proposed buildings and the existing 14th century timber frame building, which is one of very few remaining in the city. That said, I presume there'd be full dilapidation photos and survey by a separate party wall surveyor that specialises in grade listed buildings. and that assessment would be put forward to the conservation officers before the work's undertaken. Would that be correct?
That would be broadly correct. So if the applicants propose to tie in the building in the manner that I believe you're concerned about, they'd need listed building consent. So that would come to the council for consideration, and the conservation officers would look at the impact on the building. There is a condition that I've proposed to get details of the works at the adjoining areas or the immediately adjacent areas, and for vibration monitoring and the like, to seek to protect that. The Party Wall Act probably does include provisions for that. As you've said, that wouldn't be something that we would be directly involved in at the council, but there probably would be measures under the Party Wall Act as well.
Is the building owned by the council?
The Raven Centre? No, I don't believe so.
Okay, so the contractor or developer would have to employ a structural wall surveyor for the adjoining resident owner. Yeah, is that correct?
That's going to be a private matter between the owners. It's outside the sphere for the planning authority.
No problem. Well, my concern is that the planning's been put in that there is going to be a physical gap. You're not showing a physical gap, and that raises concerns if that is the case. Secondly, English Heritage has concerns regarding the application on heritage grounds. They've raised considerations and issues regarding safeguarding, and they've referenced that to paragraphs 099, 200, 206 in the NPPF document. Because these are statutory requirements with conservation areas and listed buildings under the 1998 Act, and these have been raised by not the Civic Centre, but as actual Historic England. What's happening with that? Is there planning? Is there planning? So my question is there planning conditions around the several concerns English Heritage has raised?
No, I don't think we would be able to condition design improvements to the scheme. The views from a heritage perspective on the merits and the impacts of this scheme do vary between the various professionals that have been involved in this scheme, between the applicant's heritage consultant and Historic England and the council's conservation officer and the Civic Trust. The view of the conservation officer is that there is a very low level of less than substantial harm, and she is not as concerned, I think it would be fair to say, as Historic England. I'm of the view that the conservation officer's conclusions are sound. In that instance where there's less than substantial harm identified, the NPPF directs that you should balance that against the public benefits of the scheme, which we feel are substantial, and therefore in balance that the assessment indicates that the scheme passes those tests in terms of the heritage impacts. So to come right back to your question, no, there's no conditions to directly respond to Historic England's comments.
Okay, I've got some other councillors wanting to come in. So Councillor D and then Councillor Conda and Councillor Gravel wanted another go.
You had a slide of some modelling from the forum, the view from the forum, showing where Block A is. On that slide, I couldn't see Block A highlighted, and I just wondered where it was and how significant it is to the view.
So if I'm correct, it's this image?
Yes, I think.
Okay, so the bottom image is a visualisation at 1500 millimetres above ground level. That doesn't show, the proposed building doesn't show at that height. So the architect has obviously done a test on that, if you like, with the top image, which is higher up above floor level. So 6,600 is specified there. You can just see the top. Perhaps as I've come out of the slide presentation, I'll zoom in on this one as well. Where the blue arrow is, try and keep them both on the same view. Can you see in the top? You can just see the light green of a building appearing.
Oh, yeah.
There.
Yeah.
So that's the equivalent below. So in effect, at 1.5 meters high, you won't see it, and at 6 meters, you'll just see the top of the building appearing there to the right-hand side.
Right.
It isn't very easy to see. I appreciate that, but
So it's not significant in the view of the cathedral. I know a lot of effort went into having a view of the cathedral when the forum went to planning, so it hasn't changed that or altered that in any respect. Good, thank you.
Conda?
Thank you. I know of a care home in Kingsholm which is 4 stories high, and in the last couple of summers the temperatures on the top floor have become intolerable for residents and the staff who work there, and so air conditioning is being fitted. Given that 2 of the blocks here have mostly southerly aspects, and knowing the effect of living in the centre of a city in terms of the urban heat island effect, what mitigation can be put in place? Can the air source heat pumps be used for cooling, for example?
I don't think I'm going to be able to give you a comprehensive answer on that. I think that involves a technological judgment that I can't advise the council on. The comfort of residents on the top floors is not something that's cropped up in the application or in any of the discussions with the applicants. One would suppose that through the building regulations that suitable levels of accommodation would be provided for future residents, but obviously that's separate legislation to us. If future residents found that it wasn't acceptable, possibly, yes, they could use some of the existing technology on site to add additional ventilation or air conditioning, but I'm afraid I couldn't answer that categorically.
Councillor Gravels, did you have a further question?
Just quickly, just picking up David Brown's point about the mural. Presumably, when we're in discussion in a minute, we can, if the committee so decides, decide to impose a time limit on the amount of time before that mural appears and goes back up. So it's not just open-ended.
Okay, shall we move over to debate? One more question? Okay.
2 very quick questions. One, parking, it's just the 2 disabled parkings, just to confirm, yeah?
That's correct.
That is the case. The properties, are they freehold for sale or are they to be rented?
That wouldn't be part of our consideration as the planning authority outside of the 11 units that would be secured for affordable housing.
Okay, sorry, my only query with that is quite a few of the new builds, when there's no parking, have issued free bikes with households. So that's just a query if that could be put in maybe the planning. Obviously that's for debate. And then the very last question, should the modelling that's been shown not meet what's been fitted in construction, what happens then?
That's a very fair question. We are, to that degree, reliant on the professional abilities and integrity of the architect. Broadly, that's the same with any plans that we get. I can see why it would be a concern. I would be concerned about that as well if it wasn't faithful. I'm not sure there's much I can offer as reassurance on that. I mean, when you have a professional architect who's accredited, you know, they will be drawing plans, taking measurements, you know, that are fit for purpose. That could be the case on any scheme that, you know, someone could make a mistake, or, you know, any elevation plans visuals could be wrong. So it's a fair thing to be concerned about. There wouldn't really be any recourse once planning permission has been granted. The plans that would be secured in what is condition 2 in the recommendation are the elevations and the plan and the floor plans. So provided the applicant built in accordance with those plans, that they would be implementing their permission validly. The visuals would not form part of that.
Okay, thank you. So you're saying that if the visuals aren't correct and say the increase in height does obstruct the view of the cathedral, there's no claim on the architect's public indemnity insurance, design indemnity insurance. Is that what you're saying?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not qualified to give you legal advice that you mentioned in the latter part of it. There wouldn't be any recourse through planning if they were implementing in accordance with their plans that they've listed. Whether there would be recourse through other legal means, either through the council or through the applicant, would be, I think, outside the remit of the planning decision.
Okay, let's move on to debate. Anybody want to start? I'm broadly supportive of the scheme. I think it will bring a site that's been left in disuse for a long time now, right in the heart of our city, back into use. I don't have concerns about cars and parking because of there is no car parking spaces in the vicinity and there's no open roads that don't already have schemes on. This is not going to be allowed to join any of the parking schemes. So I'm fairly relaxed with that. I think it will be predominantly lived in by people who will use other means. I don't know what we can do about the school children because it falls outside of the site. Although I share concerns working at a school and seeing in and out at the end of the day that some of the horrendous things and the accidents that we've seen in the past, I do worry. But broadly, on balance, I support this. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with you. I think on balance, this is a well thought out scheme to bring back into use a derelict building or to replace an empty building with much needed housing. And I certainly very much welcome the fact that another 55 homes will be provided in the centre of the city to add to the vitality of the city. So I think there's a lot of good elements to this. And I'm very much in favour. Thank you.
Yeah, I like this proposal apart from one element, and that's the design and brick colour on Hare Lane. I wondered if you could put up the slide with a view from Pitt Street, I think it was. Yeah, the visual. The one where you can see what's planned. Yeah, where you can see the planned design on Hare Lane.
I'll perhaps share both. So we've got that in elevation, and then that as the detailing.
I think there was another one you put up just now. Was it from Pitt Street? Or maybe it was the existing. What's there now? It was a colour photo.
I don't think there was any colour photos of the.
You went back to. I don't think when we were looking. You had it up earlier. There's a photo. Maybe it's from what's there now. That one. That's it. So obviously this new design is going to be between those two gorgeous, I thought they were 16th century buildings. And I just feel like the grey brick and the size does not fit with the rest of the street. All the buildings along that street are predominantly white with black timber, and there are some brown bricks, but there's not anything that looks like that building. And I mean, I know I have, and I'm sure others have, walked down Hare Lane before and looked at that Sainsbury's building and thought, how did that get planning permission? So I was really pleased when I heard it was going to get knocked down. But then when I saw the plans, I thought, oh no, we're going to repeat the same mistake. And my views are supported by Historic England, the Conservation Officer and the Civic Trust. Historic England say they do not oppose the development, which I don't, but raiseth concerns about the impacts, notably the Hare Lane elevation, failing to make a positive response to the cathedral setting, and the scheme not preserving or enhancing the character and appearance, suggesting further design amendments are sought. And they also said it's a missed opportunity for place shaping. The Conservation Officer agrees with Historic England and says that it's a generic scheme, not specific to the local context. And the Civic Trust says they're bland and could be significantly improved. The appearance could be made more in keeping with the adjacent buildings without adversely affecting the overall plan. The Trust noted it would like to see conditions applied requiring improvements to the design. So I'm requesting that could we make it a condition that either no work happens before a revised drawing is put to officers, or that we can defer this and a revised design come to to us, the committee, so we don't miss this opportunity. And I know that when we have a request like this, we have to say on what planning grounds. And in the report, the planning legislation is quoted, and it says the NPPF states that good design is sympathetic to local character, which I don't think this meets. The JCS policy SD4 sets out the requirement for high quality design, including responding positively to and respecting the character of the site and surroundings, and being of a scale and material appropriate to the site and setting. And the design should establish a strong sense of place and have appropriate regard to the historic environment. I don't think this is met. And policy A1 of the city plan requires overall improvements to the built and natural environment to be of suitable scale for the site, preserve the character of the area and the appearance of the street scene. Again, I don't think this is met. So I wondered what other members thought about because I just think we're going to be stuck with this building for 50, 70 years. And to me, it just doesn't fit. That bit on Hare Lane, the plan just doesn't fit with the rest of the street. It looks like it's just been plonked. You know, the roofing is very Parisian. It looks like something that you would see in Paris, not on that lovely old street. And I know architects are very talented, and I'm sure if we went back and said, can you make this more in keeping, you know, it's something they could easily do.
I think Councillor Sawyer has a very good point, and it's something that I jotted down myself. So I'm in full agreement with her observations.
Yes, I have to agree. It's a generic design. It's what we see at Friars Orchard on Brunswick Road, where, which I think actually fits in because it's a red brick environment. But on this particular aspect, I think it's very, very difficult to know how to remedy this particular design, because the Raven Centre, for example, has got gables facing the road, and whereas this is a square flat-roofed building. But certainly the colour scheme maybe could be improved. As Councillor Sawyer said, this is an opportunity to improve. I would be very hard-pressed to say what local character is now in Gloucester in terms of architectural design. But I think in this particular context, this is not it.
So, as uncontroversial as I can be, I think we ought to have a condition in there to give the developers a certain amount of time to get that mural back up. I've seen too many examples in the past where we've rubber stamped stuff here, and then you look back a few years later and say, I'm not sure if that ever happened. I'd just like to see something in writing all the staff, councillors come and go. There's no real continuity. So looking just around the room, see if there's any support for that. To condition of like must be put back out, erected in 3-4 years.
Until we should maybe look at condition 17 because it might be in there.
Sorry. Oh, it's already in there. I missed that in that case. Sorry.
I appreciate it. It may not be exactly what you're asking for, but I thought it was worth mentioning that in the latter part of condition 17, where it's requested that a method statement for the installation of the mural is provided, it goes on to say the installation of the mural should be completed in full in accordance with the approved details. That would be approved pursuant to the condition. So installed in full prior to the first occupation of a dwelling within Block B, which is the Northgate Street block that it would be sited in, unless an alternative timetable for completion of installation is approved in writing by the local planning authority.
No, that's good. So Adams jogged my memory. I do remember reading that, so happily withdraw that. So I think in lots of ways it's a fantastic scheme, particularly around the number of affordable homes. They've got the percentage right. I think it's an awful sight and an improvement on what's there at the moment. But here's the but. I listened carefully to the points that the Bursar was making. I'm not sure that anybody has really addressed them. And to me, we all know that there are parts of Gloucester, but because there's no adequate parking near people's homes, people take all kinds of chances and risks, and they park on corners, they park almost up on pedestrian crossings, and to imply that everybody who buys one of these properties will be so law abiding, they will never do that. I'm seeing further ahead than just this afternoon, this evening, and I think as good as the scheme is for people who need housing, social housing, 55 units, 55 people, obviously more in units which have 2 people, and 2 parking spaces. I think that's potentially quite chaotic. And this is an important part of Gloucester. I don't mean to imply that it's more important than the areas that we represent, but it's a sensitive area. Maybe that's a better use of words. And I foresee chaos. I foresee chaotic parking. Sound like Mystic Meg almost. I don't mean to, but I think that for those reasons, I'm not going to support this. And I'd be happy to support a deferral, not on the grounds that you were suggesting, although I think they're valid, but also for it to come back to us, addressing the points, and I keep repeating myself about the points that Bursar made, to get those in front of us so that we can make a better informed judgment on what the impact of traffic might be. The developers, if they wanted, of course, could come back with a scheme which has less units, but more car parking. That might be one solution, but this evening to nod this through, I'm not prepared to do that. And I'll second it. If you're calling for a deferral, I will certainly second that. Anybody
else? So generally, I'm in support of the build. I think we definitely need more properties and living space in the city centre. There's, last time I counted, 150 empty shopping units in the cross, few hundred metres of the cross. It's 150 plus units that have been empty, some of them for a decade. This has already been empty for 2 years. It's a huge place. There's a lot of antisocial behaviour in the units. There's been vandalism and there's been drug taking, etc. It's a blight on the economy, and we've got 55,000 people in our city, 5,500 people in our city needing housing. There's lots of families as well, currently in hotel rooms, bed and breakfasts, parents and children in 1 beds. This is definitely what we need is housing. However, I do have 2 concerns with it. One's the parking. 2 spaces for 55 units is not acceptable. There's no permit deals on the table as well, and how many people do councillors here know that has no car? I think out of 3,000 odd people that I know, I think there's probably 2 people that don't have a car and don't use a car. 55 properties, Obviously, if it's a one bedroom, you can have a couple in there, so that's 2 people. 2 bed, you're looking at minimum 2, possibly 3 people in there. So if you times allow an average of 2.5 people at 55 flats, you're looking at around 138 bike spaces. Looking at the plan, I can see bike spaces for around 10 bikes. And all you've got to do is look at the Ibis Hotel, the Orchard Hotel, where there's people in there living in the hotels. They've all got a bike, and it is a complete mess of bikes on bikes on bikes. There's probably the size of this room of bikes just stored on each other. So bike spaces needs addressing. And I believe, as Councillor Gravel said, the scheme overall is very good. I think it's excellent, and housing is needed. However, potentially in the central area, it would be good to maybe lose 1 or 2 apartments. I appreciate there's a cost element for that, a viability for the landlord, and hopefully it doesn't put the landlord off still doing the development, because we do need developments in our city, because it's definitely run down and empty, and it is needed. So potentially lose a couple of flats, get some more parking spaces in there, and sort out the bike racks to an acceptable level for the accommodation. Final thing is listed building. The statement says that they're going to build with a gap off that. It's always done in every case pretty much with listed buildings. I'd want to see that on the outline planning with a designated gap that they're going to maintain for the build. And if I saw that on that, I'd be happy. But overall, I would like to support it if those 2 conditions could be put in. 1 for extending bike spaces. Parking might not be possible with feasibility, and 1 for having a gap between the Raven Centre and the building.
I mentioned Friars Orchard earlier, and I want to make a prediction about this building. We're talking about family accommodation. Friars Orchard doesn't provide parking for the residents in the blocks of flats, and initially it was occupied by elderly retired people. We've got friends who are very happy when they moved in there. They have seen the nature of those residents change over the years. Some of the apartments have been let to students. Landlords are not local. It's a more transient community than they found when they first moved in there. I think what's happened there is very likely to happen here as well. I think it will attract students, it will attract landlords who want to let to students. The students often need transport, especially if they're Hartpury University students, because they need to get out to the countryside. I don't see it ultimately as a family occupied environment, and I think we should be aware of that.
Nobody else?
So when I mentioned 5,500 people in the city, predominantly they're single people that are looking for accommodation. So this would definitely help with the shortfall in accommodation. And if it did go towards students bring income, students learn at the university, students add to the city, they bring money in from other areas of the country into our city. So it's good for business. And students coming in is great. They normally find employment around the place of university. They usually settle there, and they'd help build and make our city successful. So again, as long as the bike situation is sorted and the gap between the Raven Centre, I'm happy to support it.
Okay, I think we'll let Adam just address the committee because there's been several issues brought up. We'll maybe look at a deferral.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, just on the basis of it, because a deferral was mentioned, just to kind of explore the listed matters that were included in the potential for deferral, notwithstanding the fact that the members are still entitled to vote exactly how they wish. But we just wanted to kind of fill in some of the gaps with, what can or what realistically can be achieved through a deferral if it was the case that the members chose to do so. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry for the delay. What I've suggested might be a pertinent way to approach this, because I heard several things that were being suggested as possible deferral reasons and possible conditions. So I just wanted to go through what I've written down just to check that I'm not missing anything or misrepresenting what members have said. So if I do that, and then perhaps if there's anything else that members want to clarify after. So item 1 that I wrote down was possible deferral or a condition for altering the facade on the Hare Lane block. Item 2 was to defer for more information about what I've noted as broadly the King's School concerns about Pitt Street. The next one was conditional deferral to redesign to potentially lose 1 or 2 units and include some car parking. And the next one was conditional defer to secure clarification about the gap between the Raven Centre and the Hare Lane block. Was there anything that I've missed or misconstrued? And then I can comment.
I don't know if... Sorry, I don't know if it's too late now, but I was just thinking Amazon deliveries is a big thing. You could have piles of, if there's 55 households there, you could have piles of stuff. So I don't know if there's a planning condition, but like a lockbox or something within the courtyard for delivery people to store stuff rather than just bundles of parcels when people are at work. I don't know if that's a planning condition or not, or something to be added, but...
Sorry, Chair, can we just deal with this issue first about the making sure that the plan officers understand the grounds that members have raised in relation to deferral? Yeah, please, thank you.
So dealing with them one by one, obviously, I appreciate that there are some strong views. So I'm just going to offer a planning observation and what I would foresee as possible options. So the facade of Hare Lane, what I would say is my position on that and the Conservation Officer's position is set out in the report, as has been mentioned by members. This design that we've got to is as a result of the negotiations that we've had so far, and the applicant is seeking a decision on that. Now, whether they would entertain making some further alterations to it, I couldn't say, but we could possibly defer and look to talk to them about that. I think it would be useful for officers if we got some direction what that is in the interest of not bringing something back, you know, to a future committee and finding that it wasn't focusing on the issues of concern. So that is a possible deferral. I don't think that that would be an appropriate condition because we would have to be approving plans, which by definition wouldn't be what you would be looking to fundamentally change. So that's a possible, I would suggest, for a deferral matter. The additional info on Pitt Street and King's School, I have to say, I don't know what else we would be able to obtain on that. If members want to give some direction on specifically what that would be, obviously it's open for you to do it. I guess I'd just re-emphasise that it's not been considered to be a reasonable or necessary condition, and I don't think the position on that is going to change, but obviously it's open for members to specify precisely what would be desired in that respect. In terms of the third one, which was the redesign to lose units and have more parking, I don't think that that would be a deferral matter. That would really quite substantially change the scheme, in my view. It would potentially change the description of development, and it really would be a wholesale change, probably incorporating a new access off a street, and really would be a new application, I think. So in that respect, I think that would be an item I would suggest falls for members' determination now. In terms of the perception of there being not enough parking, I think the highway officer and myself would say that we wouldn't have much confidence advising the committee that that would be supported at appeal. Obviously, that's a separate decision, and evidence would be put before the appeal, and the inspector may take a view either way, but it wouldn't be an option given the policy context that I could sit here and advise the committee that I have particular confidence of that being sustained at appeal. But obviously I can't predetermine what an inspector would view about that. And the fourth item is the gap for the buildings. While I understand the point, I don't feel that it's essential for a planning decision. I think if it were to be attached, then there's recourse to deal with the planning considerations of the impact on the listed building through the listed building consent. Having said that, if there is a deferral on design grounds anyway, presumably it would be relatively straightforward to clarify that point, which it might fall away anyway. Does that make sense? Are you happy with that?
I think on balance, if somebody's going to move a deferral, then you need to do it on planning grounds, and I think you've only got one there that's really viable. The last couple, I think, if that was really your point of view, that's not what this scheme is, and therefore that's more like you would want to refuse this scheme and tell them to go away and think again. It's, you know, the current application has been to and fro between the officers and the applicant, and this is what they've come up with. And just remind members that we as planning committee determine the applications that are in front of us, and if we're not happy with them, then we have to either defer or reject them to make sure on planning grounds. I'm not comfortable with really a deferral or a straight out rejection. I'm on balance happy with the scheme. I agree with you about the Hare Lane facade isn't maybe as good as it could be. I get the impression that that's been back and forth already, and we are where we are, and so we've got two choices. If you want to try and move a deferral, then now's your chance. Otherwise, I'm going to suggest that we accept the recommendations laid out in the report.
I would like to propose a deferral because I just think what have we got to do is we say, right, give us another go at, you know, like I said before, architects are very good. They could easily change that to fit in more, you know, looking at the bricks or just, you know, I mean, you said you wanted some like direction of what I was thinking. Ideally, I'd love it to look like it's always been there since the other buildings were built, because the rest of that lane, it just all works, all fits in, and then you've just got this building that just doesn't work. It never worked when Sainsbury's were there. And we've got a chance now, you know, for generations to come, to just maybe have one more go at saying, come on, architects, you know what we want now. Show us what you can do, and we get one more chance before we're left with a building that we're going to have for, a long time.
That's what you're moving, and the planning grounds you stated earlier. Do you want to just re-highlight them?
The MPPF states that good design is sympathetic to local character. I don't think that fits in with the character of that street. JCS policy ST4 says, let's just keep character of the site and surroundings and being of a scale and material appropriate to the site and setting. And so I don't think that's appropriate in that street. Policy A1 of the city plan says that overall improvements to the built and natural environment should be of suitable scale for the site, preserve the character of the area and appearance of the street scene. So again, I don't think that meets that criteria.
I'm looking for a seconder for you. Councillor Gravels. Okay. So all those in favour of deferring for the grounds that Councillor Swear said, raise your hands. Seven. All those against deferral? 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's carried. So that's been deferred. We went through them. That was the only one in reality that you get a sound planning reason for deferral. The plans and stuff could be picked up. I guess as the officers will now be back in negotiation with the applicant, the other issues around what have been picked up will be able to be looked at again.
Unfit the criteria for conditions.
Chair, sorry, I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
The other matters that are on the list,
Yeah, no, exactly.
will they become conditions?
So the case officer, Chair, can, because the members have resolved to defer the application, the case officer can seek clarification on all of those matters. So when they come back, there can be a prompt on all of those matters, notwithstanding the fact that the case officer has given a pretty comprehensive view already. We can add some meat to the bones of that when we come back next time. Thank you, Chair.
No, I just want to. This isn't a take it or leave it committee. This is a committee where we take evidence from members of the public and other organisations and we react accordingly. We don't just afford them the courtesy of a tick box exercise. New issues have been raised this afternoon, and I think they are worthy of a detailed comment by the officers of this council and the highways officers from Gloucestershire County Council. They were new to me, presumably they're new issues and points being put to all elected members. So I think we should give these guys the courtesy of a decent hearing and defer the decision on those grounds until somebody comes back with commentary, a detailed commentary on the points that the school were making. I think it's disrespectful to the school and everybody who's involved with the school just to allow them to come along to the tick box. You've made your points and not carefully consider them. I think they're worthy of more consideration. And on those grounds, I'd moved that we defer it. Because I also think, now just finally, I think 55 units and 2 parking spaces is chaotic and it's crazy. And if that's not a planning reason, I don't know what one is. I don't know what one is.
Chair, perhaps it would assist if I just give a recap of the position where we're at. The planning officer was very careful to understand the issues from members. Members stated what those were. the planning officer went back and advised members the position in relation to a deferral and sustainable grounds for planning grounds for a deferral, because we are planning committee. Out of those grounds, one proposal was seconded for deferral and voted upon. Now, if that was voted upon and carried, the matter is now deferred. If that had failed, then it was up to any member to present a new proposal and seconded for deferral. So it's now been deferred. It's no longer before the committee. It will come back to committee where it will be once again reconsidered by members. So members will have the opportunity to go through, and they will have the opportunity. And as stated by the Development Control Manager, those matters in the round, the applicant is obviously very well aware of the concerns of members expressed this evening, and the applicant will have the opportunity to address those, and it'll be back before members for full consideration again. Thank you, Chair.
Right, let's move on, please. Item, pardon? Oh, you want to go to the bathroom? Yes, sorry, check on streams as well, but just a break, 2 minutes. Let's move on. Are we ready to start? Yep. So we'll take item 7, Gala Club.
Thank you, Chair. I'm taking this on behalf of the case officer who's currently on maternity leave. So this is a full planning application for the Gala Club, Fairmile Gardens. The application is for a proposed alterations to the proposed football ground, including a new stand, concrete paving, 6 replacement floodlights and timber fencing. So this is the Red Edge application site. It incorporates the football pitch and the runoff surround, car parking and the clubhouse itself. And that's the building kind of awkwardly placed to the north of the site. Aerial photo, you can see the football pitch itself. To the northeast is a 3G pitch, which I believe is a hockey pitch, which is also, it's worth noting, is also floodlit at night. And there is at least one other pitch just off the page to the right, which is floodlit also. This is standing in the car park facing towards the football pitch, so north-ish looking south. The clubhouse is on the left, as you see it. It just kind of stood in the same place, just tilted slightly left, looking at the clubhouse. You can see the extent of the existing car park there. This is the site access into the car park. So I've just done a kind of 180-degree turn. And then moving into the site, looking south towards the residential development to the south, and I'm kind of standing kind of halfway along the north side of the football pitch on the runoff area, where kind of just approximately the new stand would be located, although it would be just to the left of the photo. And then standing pretty much in the same place, looking right, you can see the relationship to residential development that abuts the Gala application site. And then I've kind of moved to the other end of the pitch. I believe I'm kind of behind the goal almost now, looking north towards the clubhouse. The clubhouse is on the left-hand side there. The existing ball stop fence, obviously behind the goal, looking north. And then this is quite an interesting photo because it shows one of the existing floodlight poles. It shows the height, and the scale of the pole. So it gives you an idea of what exists compared to what would be proposed. And then I'm kind of standing with the residential development to the south, directly behind me, looking north to the football pitch, and then beyond to the clubhouse, which is the other side of the trees. And there's the existing dugout and kind of a small kind of stand area, and that's the area to be replaced with the new stand. And then we're on to some drawings. This is the existing arrangement, which we've just seen in quite significant detail in the photos. The proposed arrangement, so you've got a band of trees in green. Just below that is the new stand that you'd be able to see. It's not very good quality. You'd probably have to zoom in to see everything in a bit more detail. The hard standing kind of pathway runs around the pitch. So you've got the pitch and then the pitch surround, and then there's another rectangle around that larger rectangle which shows the kind of hard standing path area. And then the fencing in question in the description of development is just the other side, just to the north, abutting that row of trees. You see a kind of a green diagonal line with a couple of diagonal lines going east to west. That's the fence in question. And this shows you the proposed floodlighting at 15 metres in height, and the rear, no, that's the ball stop area. And this drawing shows the ecological benefits that were secured as part of the development. And in the bottom left corner is the bird boxes that would be secured by condition. There were the two green circles there. And there are the elevations of the proposed seats in the proposed stand. The officer recommendation is to approve subject to conditions. There is an update in the late papers, which is a note from one of the local board members, which where she explains that would the members have had the opportunity to withdraw their call into committee, that they would have, but constitutionally, because the application has been called in, it can't be retracted, and so that's why we've ended up where we are today. Nothing further to add. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Well, I do have a speaker, so is it Jonathan Clay? Yeah. So as with the previous, and you've got up to 5 minutes, tap the button whenever you're ready and off you go.
Great. Good evening, everybody. My name's John Clay. I'm a current committee member speaking on behalf of Gala Wilton Football Club. I'm the applicant for this application. I'm a volunteer, essentially, at the club, so this is my first application. I haven't done this before, and I've certainly learnt a lot through the process. I'm an ex-player at the club. I've been at the club for maybe 6 years or so. Last season I managed the first team, and now, as I say, I don't get involved in the day-to-day activities, but I do act on behalf of the committee. The team as a whole, we have 3 current men's teams. We have a veterans team for over 36 years old, and we also have recently a youth team, under 13s, that are doing very well, and they won their league this season. We've got a simple vision at the club, and that is essentially to improve the facilities and make the facilities the best in the county. The vision with this application is that effectively what we have proposed is in line with the Football Association guidelines and ground grading requirements to allow an under-18s team to be formed and play in the Floodlit League. Also, potentially in the future, if the men's team is ever good enough, it would then allow the club to progress to the next level as well. But this season, they're not doing so well for various reasons. But we really do want to promote the youth setup as part of the club. Many years ago, so the club has been established for over 50 years. It did used to have a full youth setup. All of that has fallen away. Players have gone to other teams who've got better facilities, others notably Tuffley Rovers, Long Levens. So as a club, we really do have a ceiling on us, and it is a kind of vicious cycle where, you know, we get good players in, we do really well, we think that we're going to win the league, and then all of a sudden we can't go anywhere because we haven't got the right ground grading requirements. We lose men's players, we lose youth players. It's a real issue because as volunteers at the club, we spend a lot of time, our own personal time and commitment to the club. It costs a lot of money actually at grassroots level to run football clubs, and it doesn't help when players leave. We've recently been supported by the local council to help to improve some of the shower facilities, so thank you very much for that. But as a club, we spent thousands. Actually, the chairman who was with me earlier and had to leave, he said we spent over £30,000 just to maintain the pitch. That's out of our own money, and that stretches back over the last 25 years or so. So it's expensive to run a football club. We understand some of the comments and concerns from key stakeholders, ecology, local residents, all of which we hopefully have addressed within the application. We did also reach out to local residents when we first put the application in, and there was a kind of consultation meeting held, which I know Linda wanted to talk about, but generally the feeling was quite positive out of that meeting. There were no ongoing concerns from that. We're not actually linked directly to the Gala Social Club, so we are a separate entity. We're a football club, they're the social club, but clearly we have very close links. We use their facilities. It goes hand in hand that if the football club is successful, that means that there's more people in the vicinity and they're more likely to go back to the social club, eat food, have a drink afterwards. So a successful football club is definitely going to lead to a successful social club. We're in discussions with the social club around the long-term future and if that could be linked in any sort of way. But certainly, as I say, when we lose players, it means that people don't spend money in the social club. So we're looking longer ahead. We're trying to set things up properly as a club, trying to create a youth system. We engaged yesterday in a meeting with local parents around trying to increase fundraising activities, etc. So we really are trying to grow the facilities, improve the club, all in support of the local community. And I think that's about all I was going to say. So obviously, if there's any questions, I'm sure you will debate it. But I'm just speaking in support of the application and hope that you approve it. Thank you.
Councillor Castle, do you want to say a few words?
Thank you. Just to say, really, we were contacted by a number of residents who had concerns about the planning application. So that's the reason why we called it to the planning committee. But since then, the application was submitted 12 months ago. Lee Sheridan, the manager of Gala Wilton Football Club, approached Sarah and myself to arrange a meeting with local residents. This meeting was very well supported, and it was a question and answer session. And at the end of that meeting, which was well attended by the local residents, we were happy with the answer. The residents were happy with the questions, and we felt the outcome of the meeting was positive, and we have no objections to the planning application. Since then, Lee has always been open to questions from residents, but he hasn't had any further questions raised by the planning application. Okay, so I would, I haven't got any objections. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so here we've got this in front of us. This ordinarily would have been done under delegated powers, but it got called to committee by councillors, and there's not a formal mechanism to uncall it. So does anybody have any questions or, right, in which case I'm going to move that we approve the recommendations as laid out in the report. Yeah. All those in, seconder. I need a seconder. Councillor Gravels. Okay, all those in favour? Yes, I lost my wingman, didn't I?
Yes. Unanimous.
Unanimous, super.
Thanks.
Okay, so that's been approved. Delegated decisions, happy to note? Okay, so then that just leaves date of next meeting, which actually is our last one as a committee, isn't it? Before the elections. And then you'll be a new body. So we'll see you all on Tuesday, the 2nd of April.